Welcome to Retirepreneur TV. I'm Donna Kastner, your host and tour guide, and we're thrilled to have you join us for this first of what I hope will be many monthly programs. So what's Retirepreneur? We're about helping those age 50 and older to explore how they might launch a freelance endeavor in their retirement years. For some, the motivation is extra income. For others, it's more altruistic. They might be that social entrepreneur. Whatever the case, in this show, we'll feature interviews with experts and lots of stories. In fact, later in this show, Tom Speaks, principal and co-founder at the Impact Group here in Hudson, will join us. The Impact Group is very keen on tapping Retirepreneur-type talent, so you want to be able to stick around for that one. But for this program, I want to start by setting the stage. To borrow a line from best-selling author Simon Sinek, I'd like to start with the why. Why are we doing this program? What's our mission? And even more importantly, who are we designing this program for most of all? Retirepreneur is a collaborative community for 50-somethings and 60-somethings who are striving for a smooth and successful segue from full-time job to part-time consulting gig. It's for forward thinkers and doers who crave something more satisfying in this encore career chapter, designing something on their terms, doing work they enjoy. And what's our mission? Well, we're championing a movement to reinvent what it means to work in retirement. Why reinvent? Is that really necessary? We think so, and here are a few reasons why. Let's start with longevity. People are living longer today. Consider this. In 1900, the average life expectancy was 47. That blew my mind when I read that. In 1935, when Social Security was launched, the average lifespan was 61.7 years. That means better than half the population would never reach the age to qualify to collect. Now fast forward to the year 2000, and the average lifespan clocks in at 77 years. Today, lifespans continue to increase. We're moving well into the mid-80s and beyond. And when you think about the medical research advances and that today's population is generally more tuned in to wellness, we've been watching over the past 20 to 30 years, and on average, we've been adding 3 to 5 years each decade to the lifespan clock, and that will only accelerate. Now, get ready for a mind-blowing quote. I host the Retirepreneur podcast, and on a recent show, I was interviewing an expert, and he shared that the first person who will live to reach the age of 150 has likely already been born. Now, I want to get clear about something. I am not advocating that you continue working until you're 90 or 100, though you could, but an abrupt stop at age 65, it just doesn't make sense anymore. So instead of an abrupt stop, bam, you're done, you're retired. How about a more gradual downshift where you're still engaged? You can kind of blend leisure time pursuits, time with the grandkids, travel, but still stay engaged in the work you truly enjoy. I'm a boomer, and I'm getting ready to cross a big milestone later this year. But, I'm on the younger side of this 18-year span, this 18-year population. But as I look back on the adventures of the boomer generation, we've reinvented nearly every life stage we've moved through. Why would we stop now? And while we're speaking of the why for Retirepreneur, why me? Why would I be a champion for this movement? Well, I've bootstrapped a few successful businesses, going all the way back to the first one back in 1984. At the time, we were living in New Jersey. Our first son was born. I was taking a 1-year leave from my teaching job so I could kind of figure out what I was going to do next. Anyway, during that leave, I picked up an IBM PC Junior, and I managed to land an assignment with a local book publisher typesetting book manuscripts from my home. So here I am on this PC Junior, babies sleep from time to time, so I was getting work done. And you have to keep in mind, back then, less than 1% of homes had a personal computer. I know we take it for granted today, but it's pretty crazy. But I want to point out that successful entrepreneurs, they tend to be early adopters of technology. So anyway, going back to my story. Here I had this typesetting gig. It was going so well, the publisher wanted to expand it. So then I started recruiting and training several other work-at-home moms, and this business was my #1 business off and running. Of course, I had a spouse, and we had a number of relocations, but for me, it was kind of good. I kept reinventing myself. Anyway, through the years, I've launched a number of businesses from home, and today, I'm blessed with a thriving consulting practice. But now, with Retirepreneur, I want to make one more charge up the startup hill. And I want to live this out loud, live my journey out more transparently. So I'm writing articles, we have a blog on retirepreneur.com, I'm speaking at conferences, I host a podcast, and yes, now we have Retirepreneur TV, because I'm looking to help tap this community and help them advance faster. Keep in mind, with the internet, the barriers to broadcasting and publishing have come down, and that's good news for anyone who wants to freelance. And let's go back to the why for Retirepreneur. And let's look at money matters. This concept of Retirepreneur first hit me back in 2009. It was right after the recession hit. Boomer savings for retirement took a nosedive. For many, it would take years to recover. Their 401ks were not looking so great. But there was another disruption going on at that time. Many organizations were tightening their belts and layoffs followed. And who was the prime target? Yep, the boomers. You know, these folks had 20, 30 years of experience, and many were highly compensated. Layoffs for this segment would make a bigger impact on the bottom line. And with ageism, and yes, I know that's illegal, but it happens, many of these boomers would have a hard time landing their next job. And for those who managed to do so, it was often at a lower salary, and for some, they would experience another employment disruption before they reached the retirement finish line. What about those 401k savings? Remember, boomers were the first to move through this new 401k model from start to finish. Back in our parents' day, many had pension income to count on. Today, maybe 1 in 4 boomers can count on pension income, and even fewer will have that in the future. 401k plans were designed to shift more of that retirement savings responsibility to the individual, and it made sense. And some boomers were diligent about savings, and others weren't. Others didn't or couldn't. Fast forward to today, and the numbers are alarming. Here are a few statistics from a recent survey by the Insured Retirement Institute. Only 24% of boomers are confident they'll have enough savings for retirement. That's down from 36% back in 2012. Only 39% of boomers have even tried to calculate how much they're going to need. And 59% of boomers cited Social Security as a primary source for retirement income. And the most alarming statistic of all, what you're looking at right now are statistics from a PwC survey. According to this survey, roughly half of all boomers have set aside $100,000 or less. Yep, and that's very alarming. So with retirement nest eggs a bit lighter, working longer might be a good option to fill that savings gap. But I want to issue one caveat. If you're woefully behind, you will likely have too much urgency, and that could impact results. Now let's move to one more why for Retirepreneur: the talent gap. Many businesses are scrambling to find qualified candidates to address talent gaps. And this talent gap is growing much larger as boomers exit the workplace. In this slide that you're looking at right now, you'll see findings from a skills gap study by Deloitte and the Manufacturing Institute. They're indicating areas where skill gaps are going to be largest. And these competencies where demand is high but candidate job pools are low, that's a wonderful opportunity for retirepreneurs to go after. In this next slide from the same study, you can see that talent gaps will continue to rise through 2020 and beyond. And again, they're calling out areas where gaps will be most profound. With talent gaps growing, companies are more open to engaging contractors to fill these gaps, which is a good thing for retirepreneurs. proposing some kind of part-time flex assignment to these firms has better chances of advancing. Now let's talk about the gig economy. I've been keeping a close eye on this for quite some time, long before it was talked about, and it spans beyond all those Uber drivers. Here are a few current day statistics about contractors and what's referenced as the contingent workforce. For the average company, contingent workers make up 18 to 20% of the total workforce. That would include temps, contractors, self-employed individuals, part-timers. Now here's another statistic. Over the past 7 years, this contingent workforce has doubled, and by 2020, forecasts say it will account for 40 to 50% of the total workforce. Yep, in today's fast-changing business environment, it makes a lot of sense for these businesses. There are times when they need just-in-time talent, and contractors and specialists are a wonderful solution to explore. And again, more good news for aspiring retirepreneurs. One final point on this talent gap. With boomers retiring, where will opportunities be strongest? Maybe you're looking at where you're going to move for those retirement years. What you're now seeing is a map of the United States from the AARP indicating the top 10 states where boomer populations are largest. And yep, there's Ohio. Again, if you're staying here, that's good news for retirepreneurs, as more firms in Ohio will be looking for talent you can provide to them. Okay, so I've given you a lot to take in, but rest assured, in future programs, we'll take a closer look at workforce changes and how this dynamic is opening up more opportunities to seize for retirepreneurs. And with that, we're going to pivot for a moment and prepare for our interview with Tom Speaks. While we do that, here are a few more things to ponder. And we're back. And joining us now is Tom Speaks from the Impact Group. Tom, you're our first guest here on Retirepreneur TV. Welcome.
Thank you. So honored to be so.
So tell us more about the Impact Group, the work that you do, who you work with, and even more so, what prompted you to launch this business?
Sure. Gosh, the Impact Group, we began 17 years ago, Don Poliak and myself. Really a blessing. Don has been a lifelong friend. We played soccer together. We're about 7 years old. So we've been buddies forever. Really, he and I are both political guys. We went to school, learned how to run campaigns, always ran campaigns, and frankly, we won quite a few of them, if not all of them, for a while. And we ended up getting together. Don was actually doing an interview out on the West Coast one time with Edelman Public Relations. Edelman Public Relations was celebrating their 50th anniversary. And what he found when he was out there was that Dan Edelman, went off to World War II. He was a political guy before, came back, and he applied that political methodology to marketing, whether it's a product, service, message. And really, that's what Don and I have done. And for 17 years now, we built the business. We have 19 employees, and we really drive marketing campaigns, whether it's for a private, a nonprofit, a B2B, B2C, whatever, but we really have a hard driving message to get results. And that political model has been what's allowed us to do it.
Well, and I had a chance to tour your offices.
Yes.
What a creative environment you've created.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, we're down there on 91, right across from Life Center Plus. There's the old 1881 barn over there, which has just been terrific. We're able to go back there, a big hollow creative space. It's been pretty cool. We have a lot of creatives on staff, so it really helps out a lot.
Crisis communications, so who would be your typical clients?
Well, crisis communications is one of the many things we do. We deal with, we have cities, we have school districts, county boards of DD, businesses, and really the idea there is when we do the crisis communications is it's really not a matter of when, but it's going to happen, right? Not a matter of if, but when. It's going to happen. So we're really to be prepared. Are people trained to get a message out when things go wrong? Do they know how to do it? With social media, things go so fast immediately that if you don't handle a crisis communication issue within the first 10 minutes, you're in big trouble. So you need to work with them to get the message out on Facebook, on Twitter, the phone message out to whomever, email, to have speaking points, because you could have a news media outlet there immediately. What are you going to say and how are you going to say it? So crisis communications is one thing we do, and it is an interesting field.
So crisis, that's, we've got to kind of put out a fire, and with social, those
Correct.
fires are happening faster. But with social, there's so many opportunities to seize, to be able to communicate with customers, to help them grow. Talk to me a little bit more on the marketing side of what you're doing for clients.
Yeah, I mean, really, there are so many platforms right now to get the message out. One of the things we find is that people ask us all the time, what is the silver bullet? Do we have to, is it Twitter, is it Facebook, is it social media, what is it? And honestly, right now, there is no specific platform. What you need to do is to communicate across many, many platforms. Social media is obviously a huge, huge piece of that. But one of the biggest things we talk about is the message. I mean, what is your message? What are you trying to get out to the community? We find a lot that people, when they want to start broadcasting, they're talking about tactics. They're talking about a website or a Facebook or Twitter or a Snapchat or a brochure. Great. What are you going to say?
Sure.
What are you going to say? Who is it connecting with? So really, our silver bullet is your message. I mean, what is the message that you have that is going to connect with a targeted audience in a meaningful way to drive them to a specific action?
And back to that speed of business and speed
Right.
of social, that message has to be concise, right? You
yes.
don't have a lot of time.
Absolutely, very, very concise. We have something we live and die by called 333, that we believe that 85% of all people get their message in 3 seconds. In 3 seconds.
Wow.
It's really the average attention span of the American is really decreased, which is kind of depressing, but it is what it is. So you need to be able to condense what your message is in a very, very simple format and then repeat it again and again and again. And the key is it has to be emotional and it has to connect with your targeted audience. And the way to do that, you need to engage your audience. You need, whether it's polling, whether it's focus groups, whatever, who is your targeted audience? You have to define that. Once you do, you need to find out what is important to them. An example we have is we did some work with a park district in southern Ohio, and the people in this park district, after we did the research, they are passionate about open space. They could care less about green space. It's the same darn thing, okay? It's the same thing, but words matter, right? Mm-hmm. Had that agency led with, we're all about green space, nobody cares. If they lead all about open space, everybody's passionate. So anybody that's marketing, one of the first things we say is, what is your message? Who are you trying to market to? What specific response are you trying to get? Because if you don't have those basic pieces of information and know what your audience wants, the tactics, it doesn't even matter. You got to have your message.
And that's really interesting because the keywords,
Right.
They even are changing. So what might have been the word that I'd lock into 3 years ago might not be the same trigger that's going to get my attention today.
Absolutely. I mean, 3 years is an eternity. It really is. I mean, what is your population? What is the targeted audience you're going for? What do they need to see now? If you're not continually reevaluating that, understanding what your folks need, then you're missing the boat.
So you've got this great team, and they're kind of looking at marketing and communications from a number of different
Sure.
angles. And I was impressed because it is a multi-generational team.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, the boomers are in there too.
They sure
Talk
are.
to me a little bit more about that.
It has been a wonderful situation. I'm very proud of our crew. We have 19 folks, and you're right, they're all different generations. We have the younger folks, we have the older folks, and everybody in between. We have had fabulous success with individuals that are retired, and it's something it's a big part of our business model as we move forward. What we found is that the folks that have retired, kind of stating the obvious, but a lot of wisdom there. They've done it. They understand it. They understand complexities, which a lot of us don't, myself included. They're bringing different pieces. A lot of our younger staff are fabulous. They are terrific people. They have the technical skills, but they don't have that weight of wisdom of having done it. Now, there's a big caveat in working with seniors, not just with seniors, but folks that have retired.
Because we're a little touchy about that.
Yes, sorry about that. One of the things that I think that a lot of entrepreneurs are fearful of is that a retired individual is going to come in and simply just just kind of provide wisdom and just provide, the kind of the sage that is going to provide.
Here, let me tell you what's going on and how the world operates.
Exactly, and there's a place for that. But I can tell you, for us, we need somebody who is going to do the do. They're going to be a part of things. They're going to be a part of the writing, a part of the process, a part of the presenting, and that's what we have right now, and it has been terrific. So it's certainly not true of all industries, but I can say for us, we want folks that we know that are going to be a part of the process in a meaningful way, and that's what makes it all go. So we are thrilled about that opportunity.
Well, and it strikes me that one bit of advice I'll often give is, know your swim lane, know your specialty lane.
Right.
And really stay there, but then you collaborate with others. And it sounds like that's truly what's going on at the Impact Group.
It is. I mean, these folks that are retired, they've spent 25 years in the schools or 25 years in development of disabilities or as an industry leader in a specific thing. Their knowledge is fabulous. And boy, is that a lot to tap into, and it's something that we need.
So let's shift over to this whole marketing realm, and there's message and brand. We're hearing the word brand,
right.
Branding. Tell us more about your work there.
A brand is one of those things, libraries have been written about a brand, right? A brand at the end of the day is a promise. And people don't think about this, but a brand is a promise. If you buy a Coke in LA, and if you buy a Coke in New York, will it taste the same? Yeah, it tastes, you don't even think about it, right? It's got the label, you have the same experience. That label, that logo, whatever your brand is the promise of an experience. So here's the thing, your brand is an experience. What experience do people expect when they're dealing with your school district or your company or your nonprofit? There is an experience there, and if you don't have a very clear idea of your value proposition and how to have a culture that supports that, you're in a pickle. The idea, your brand is everything, and your brand at the end of the day is how you treat people. So if you don't have clear expectations of that, you're gonna have a hard time. You have to have a clear idea of what your brand is so it can be packaged properly and be effective.
And in today's business environment where things are changing so fast, I see businesses, we'll do that too. And it strikes me that the brand and the promise and the messaging can get diluted if you try to be all things to all people.
It can. You need to decide what you're going to be, and you need to be that. There's a term which I love, it's called rational ignorance. And the idea is that we as modern consumers are so bombarded with, frankly, crap, just so much information. We are rationally trying to keep it out of our heads. There's so much that people can't handle that kind of change. So when you have a message, when you have a brand, stick with it. When you are sick to death of your brand, when you have said your tagline enough times, you and your team, that it's driving you crazy, you said it so many times, you have just begun to dent the rational ignorance of the population you're trying to communicate to. We find a lot of people, after they've done the research, their message is great, it's going forward. Just when it's beginning to hit, they want to change everything up to make it new. That is a bad idea. When you have something positive, you know it's measured correctly, keep it up.
There's one more thing, I'm loving this conversation. There's one more thing I want to touch on, and it's Appreciology. You've got a new book coming out, and this whole concept of Appreciology in the workplace. What prompted you to tackle this?
Well, at the Impact Group, we do a lot of work with a lot of companies in a lot of different ways. And one of the things we found is that when we work with the different employees at different levels, we asked, about their happiness. How are things going? Why do you leave? When people leave jobs, they leave for one of two reasons. One, they report that their supervisor is a bonehead, or that they don't get appreciated. And when you talk about why is your supervisor a bonehead, it's because they don't appreciate you.
Well, and appreciation. Yeah. Sometimes we go, okay, so nice job. That's not appreciation that matters, right?
It's okay. But what we've found is, first of all, is that appreciation or lack thereof is the common denominator. It's what people don't get. Yeah, what we've found is that we are so horrible as a culture at praising one another and receiving praise that it's just an awkward place. That if people aren't told, instructed of how to do it, and it's really the idea is to catch people doing something right. We are prone as human beings to see the negative. If you arrive to an office in the morning, let's say it's 6 in the morning, you get there, it's the middle of winter, and the driveway is plowed and it's salted. You walk in the front door, the heat is on. You sit down at your desk, turn on the computer works great. You get a cup of coffee, the coffee's made. You go to your first meeting, perfect. Second meeting, perfect. Third meeting, you go in, and a report that you needed wasn't given to you, and it's really embarrassing. When you go home and talk to your significant other, what do you tell them about?
The thing that went wrong.
The thing that went wrong, right? We don't even see. Somebody plowed that driveway. Somebody made sure your computer was on. Somebody paid your paycheck.
So many things went right.
We are blind to it. I mean, we are absolutely swimming in positive. Folks doing stuff they're supposed to do all the time, and we don't even see it. So the idea of catching somebody doing something right is acknowledge them for it. Acknowledge the good things that people are doing. It's remarkable when you catch people doing something right. And the idea of human behavior, whether it's a child or an adult, if you catch someone doing something right, they'll keep doing it. So it's just a way to create a positive work environment. It's just a wonderful way to move forward. I could talk about that subject for 3 hours, but we need some more appreciation in this world, especially right now, being kind and generous to one another.
And it strikes me that that would be a perfect category for the right retirepreneur with some HR and workforce development background to tackle.
Oh yeah, that's something that we're actually getting quite a few folks that are requesting to come out, talk to them, building a culture of appreciation. How do you build that? So yes, absolutely.
Okay, so we have talked about all kinds of things. If people want to know more about the Impact Group, about your book, can you give us the website for you guys? Maybe they could explore a little bit more.
Absolutely. You can go to www.igpr.com. And honestly, if you're here in Hudson, just stop down and visit us in the old barn. I think people would really get a kick out of the space. But check us out on the website for sure.
All right, you heard that, igpr.com.
Thank you for having us today, so nice.
Thank you for coming, you're my first guest, so hopefully if I do this right, we'll have you back a year from now for the anniversary episode. How's that?
I'd be honored to do it.
All right, thanks Tom.
Thanks, Donna.
And with that, we have hit the finish line. Hopefully you've come away with some kind of great insight you can run with to advance faster. And in the meantime, keep charging ahead. And we're going to come back next month with more insights like this, so we hope you'll tune in. Thanks again.